Fox News alert, Barack Obama thinks Kamala Harris has officially plateaued. And behind the scenes, he's saying worse. Kamala's losing the black vote. He was caught saying this just moments ago in Pittsburgh.
We have not yet seen the same kinds of energy and turnout in all quarters of our neighborhoods and communities as we saw when I was running. Now, I also want to say that that seems to be more pronounced with the brothers. So if you don't mind, just for a second, I'm going to speak to y'all directly and say that when you have a choice that is this clear, when on the one hand you have somebody who grew up like you, knows you, went to college with you, understands the struggles and pain and joy that comes from those experiences.
Now they're going to need white dudes and black dudes for Harris hats. Now, the Obamas and the Clintons are telling her no more talking. The men are taking over.
They need to be sharp. They need to be aggressive. They need to stop answering questions and start asking questions. I would put President Obama out to make that. He's only got a 92% approval with Democrats. He only is the author, the father of 23 million people having insurance. I would have President Clinton talking, going on these local TV stations, talking about how tariffs are going to destroy the economy of Wisconsin or Michigan. The whole campaign needs to be much more aggressive and much less passive than they are.
This is a softer, gentler coup. She's still the nominee, but Obama and Bubba are going to be taking charge. They're letting Bill Clinton loose. The comeback kid is hitting the campaign trail for Harris. And the Messiah, he is back. Barack's in Pittsburgh, and the media is orgasmic.
There probably isn't another human being on the planet right now capable of providing more of an electric jolt to the Democrats' most winning coalition than President Barack Obama.
Barack Obama really has become the country's chief explainer in chief, the person who wants to explain the moment we're in, the position we are, the stakes.
He's obviously one of the best, if not the best, orators in politics that we've seen in many years.
Barack is here to mansplain Harris to the country. You know, when the young lady says holistic, what she really means is, here he was just moments ago.
This election's going to be tight because there are a lot of Americans who are still struggling out there. So I get it, why people are looking to shake things up. I mean, I am the hopey changey guy. So I understand people feeling frustrated and feeling we can do better. What I cannot understand is why anybody would think that Donald Trump will shake things up in a way that is good for you.
He just said America's struggling and wants change from the Biden-Harris administration. And Harris just said she doesn't represent change. They don't have it this time, guys. Obama once said Kamala Harris was the best-looking attorney general in the country. He said she's Jamaican me crazy. Can he push his crush over the finish line? Feels like it's too late. Everyone knows Kamala Harris is Joe Biden.
If anything, would you have done something differently than President Biden during the past 4 years?
There is not a thing that comes to mind in terms of, and I've been a part of most of the decisions that have had impact.
After she said that, she went on Colbert and somehow made it worse.
Under a Harris administration, what would the major changes be and what would stay the same?
Sure. Well, I mean, I'm obviously not Joe Biden.
I know.
And so that would be one change in terms of... Yes. But also, I think it's important to say with, 28 days to go, I'm not Donald Trump. And And so when we think about the significance of what this next generation of leadership looks like, were I to be elected president, it is about, frankly, I love the American people, and I believe in our country.
Oh, my God. Kamala has had 2 months to come up with an answer to one question. Who are you? The best she could do is, I'm not Joe Biden and I'm not Donald Trump. That's it. The core question of this election is, how is Kamala different than Joe? They staged a coup because Joe is Joe and he couldn't win. You can't say you're the same guy. She just said, I do all of these things that this terrible guy did, the same stuff. The guy that was so terrible we couped him. But I'm totally different from him. But I can't put my finger on how. Kamala just went on television and said she's running for president because she's not Trump or Biden. I mean, we can go out on the street right here and pick anyone, and they have the same qualifications. CNN's not even convinced.
Vice President Harris has been asked repeatedly how she's different than President Biden, and some people think she's been tripped up by answering that. How do you think she is different than President Biden?
Well, first of all, whatever the differences is between them, it's not nearly as vast as the difference between her and Donald Trump. She's obviously a woman. She is a woman of color, and she is of a new generation.
Kamala's not Joe Biden because she's younger, black, and wears high heels. That's the best Democrats can do. He's a surrogate for the Harris campaign, and the only difference he can point out are biological. They can't answer the question because she's not different than Biden. She's just a machine politician that supported party bosses to get promoted. And she's been promoted all the way to the top. And she's still loyal to the party boss because she doesn't know any better. It's the only thing she knows that works. Blind loyalty. She's never had to do anything on her own. She's only had to say yes to get ahead. She's no different than Joe. They're just branding her differently. The Democrats spent $1 billion on Turn the Page, A New Direction, millions of dollars on commercials, signs, T-shirts, and she just lit it on fire. They say MAGA's a cult. What do you call this? She can't think of one thing she'd do differently than Joe Biden. Not Afghanistan, spending, the border. I can think of a few things I would have done differently than Trump. January 6th comes to mind. I'd do that differently. Kamala should try it. Pick something that didn't go well with Joe. Look around. There's plenty to choose from. She's too afraid to pick because she's just a puppet. The machine won't even tell her something to say about how she's different from Biden because it would make the machine look bad. They'd have to admit that they screwed up because Biden's just a puppet too. And Democrats can never admit they made a mistake because they've been lying about how great everything's been. Kamala, who's been in power for 4 years, then said the American dream is gone.
The American dream right now is really elusive for far too many people in terms of even aspiring to own a home. It's too expensive.
I mean, if you're Obama, you have no choice but to step in. You send her to do interviews, not in the Lion's Den. You send her in to do The View, to do Colbert. And she says, I'm Joe Biden and I killed the American dream. The only thing different about Kamala was her accent.
Have you no empathy, man?
Yes.
You know, for the suffering of other people. Have you no sense of purpose?
Was that a leprechaun? Was that Indian? Was that Jamaican? What was that? I'm getting so... I mean, Kamala Harris has now reached the beer drinking stage. Watch.
One of the old saws is, they just want somebody they can have a beer with. So would you like to have a beer with me so I can tell people what that's like? Okay. This was... Now, we asked ahead of time because I can't just be giving a drink to the Vice President of the United States without asking. You asked for Miller High Life. You asked Miller High Life. I'm just curious.
Okay, the last time I had beer was at a baseball game with Doug.
So cheers.
Cheers.
There you go. Ooh. That tastes like the beautiful city of Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Champagne and beers.
There you go.
When female politicians start sipping beer on TV, that's when you know they're losing. And they're especially losing men.
nice because it looks really dark in color, but it's very light in flavor.
It is.
So
That's, yeah, exactly.
you get a lot of them like or something like that. Cheers.
Cheers. That's right. That's good.
You have a flight schedule on it.
We've reached the pandering to the white working man phase. Next, Kamala will be driving a pickup, shooting pheasants with walls, probably throwing on an army helmet like Dukakis. A politician sipped a beer on a late night show. I've seen more edgier stuff on SpongeBob. These aren't even interviews. These are just opportunities to make Kamala look good. And it's not even working. The media is just trying to manufacture a moment for Harris. But you can't fake a personality with beer and accents. So they're turning to Obama. And then, get me some Doritos, I'm going to Michigan. Democrats are just throwing things at the wall, hoping it sticks now. While Trump's just doing his thing. He went on a podcast with a bunch of comedians, and here's what he said about Biden.
He has one ability I don't have.
Yeah.
He sleeps. He can sleep. This guy goes on a beach and he lays down on one of those, 6 ounce, they weigh 6 ounces and he can't lift it. Yeah. And somebody convinced him he looks good in a bathing suit. And when you're 82, typically bathing suits aren't going to make you look great. You're not going to be enhanced. Yeah. All right? It's just one of those things. I can't be sure about that, but typically you don't.
Depends what he's packing. He could.
I don't know what the hell he's packing, but I don't want to, and I don't want to know either. I don't know.
Now, what makes Trump interesting is that he's unpredictable. Kamala, you can see what's coming a mile away.
I do a thing called a weave, and there are those that are fair that say this guy is so genius, and then others would say, "Oh, he rambled." I don't ramble. If I start a story, what you do is you weave things and you do it. You have to have certain things. You need an extraordinary memory because you have to come back to where you started.
Yes.
A weave is only good if you come back.
They would give you credit for that.
Yeah, it's true.
You could go all the way over here and then get back.
I can go so far here or there, and I can come back to exactly where I started. Now, someday when you don't come back to where you started,
you're Biden.
Then you say,
Trump now ahead in Pennsylvania, Michigan. He only needs to win one of those. And then that's all she wrote. He's a favorite in the betting markets and has the momentum. It's close, don't get me wrong, but you'd rather be Trump than Kamala right now. His internal numbers must be really good because he's making a play for Virginia, Minnesota, New Jersey, and I don't even think this is possible. I shouldn't even say it, but he said it. Even New York.
we just rented Madison Square Garden. We're going to make a play. We're going to make a play for New York. Hasn't been done in a long time. It hasn't been done in many decades.
Sage Steele, host of the Sage Steele podcast, back on prime time. How you doing, Sage?
I'm great, Jesse. It's good to see you again.
Good to see you, too. Obama doesn't look great. He looks worried, and he's mad at the brothers for not coming out for Harris. Do you think the magic from the Messiah is going to be enough to drag the best-looking attorney general in America across the finish line?
What I think versus what I want, actually, I think this answer is the same. To me, no. Because right now it's obvious that they are in panic mode. That's why, and again, you know, I just moved to the state of Florida, the free state of Florida, as we say. And one of the reasons is because I'm trying to escape the way my state up north in Connecticut had been run because of people like Kamala and frankly, because of Barack Obama as well. But at the end of the day, the optics have been disturbing if I take a step back and put my biases aside and say, okay, what is this campaign doing? And to bring him in now after what? The complete flub with how they handled the storm, Hurricane Helene in particular, and coming off of the major pushback, she's gotten crushed from going on the podcast, Call Her Daddy, and then, of course, drinking beer with Stephen Colbert. How about those optics, by the way?
Yeah.
Like, they plan that ahead to pick the kind of beer she's going to drink. Do you think people buy that? So this is panic. However, if I'm their campaign, I would be doing the exact same thing because people now go, oh my gosh, where is Barack Obama? I hope that for the sake of our country, not because I like Donald Trump better or her less, for the sake of our country, based on what? what we've already seen for 4 years from 2016 through 2020, how our country was safer in every aspect, how our economy was so much better. I really hope that people can once again put aside all the personalities, focus on the policies, and just be honest. If you have to plug your nose when you go in there to vote, do it. But at the end of the day, this desperation ploy right now, I think we can all kind of see what's happening.
I mean, even Barack Obama said it himself. He said, Americans are struggling. I understand why people want change. People are frustrated. I mean, we are living in a Biden-Harris world, and he's saying, I get it. You don't like these people. You don't want to be here anymore. But he's saying, not Donald Trump. You got to go Harris. That argument doesn't make any sense. She just said she's no different than Joe Biden. Sage? I think Barack's lost his touch.
That's the thing. I mean, what else can he say? They are actually between a rock and a hard place, right? You're trying to say, no, bring me in because I represent change. I'll make you better. Change from what? The same 4 years that you've been a part of? And you say all the time, we. So which one is it, right? And they don't know what to say. They think that people are so dumb and so anti-Trump, which many are, that they're just going to ignore the facts and focus just on him. I hope that we as voters are better than that.
Well, I wish we had more time to talk, Sage, because I've missed you. We had a lot of hurricane stuff at the top. I'm sorry, we got to go. We're glad you have your power in Florida.
Good to see you.
Good to see you, too.
Thank you.
Johnny goes back to Brooklyn.
Joe's out and Kamala's in. What do you think of her?
If we was to have a terrorist attack, I don't think she would know what to do. You know, Trump, we already know what Trump would do.
What would he do?
Trump would get rid of him.
After a sugar high, there's always a sugar crash, and this one hit the Democrats like a ton of bricks. Kamala's Sun Belt momentum is completely evaporated, and her blue wall is on the verge of collapse. And her closest confidants know it. New Quinnipiac polls show Trump has flipped the script in Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania. Michigan looks like a big problem for Harris. Former staffers say this, I am worried about turnout in Detroit. I think it's real. Do they have the machine to turn people out? There are concerns, and they're not insignificant. The Michigan governor is saying Kamala's economic pitch isn't working, and she needs to spend more time campaigning there. Behind the scenes, it is grim.
What's happening now with Kamala Harris is this is an experiment. Can you win a short campaign with an untested candidate? And what I'm telling you is happening in private polling is she's got a problem now. The conversation I'm having with Trump people and Democrats with data are extremely bullish on Trump's chances in the last 48 hours. Extremely bullish.
Kamala's vibes are off, and Democrats are depressed.
I feel like I'm living in another country. So, like, I'm going to really feel that way if the election goes in the Trump direction. It's like, how bankrupt have so many souls become? And I've just been really down lately, not about Trump, but about who we are. And is this who we've become? Because if that's the case, it's much bigger than Donald Trump.
The Democrats are already showing signs of surrendering. Tim Walz overheard complaining about the Electoral College, saying we need to get rid of it. The coach doesn't sound very confident. But don't worry, Timmy, your wife will cheer you up.
When the Scarlet team comes on the field, we will all stand up and cheer. To the other team we'll never yield, and we won't forget we're here. We will fight for victory and win. We will conquer every foe. When the Scarlet team comes on the field, we will fight for Mankato.
And it's not just Democrats talking like they're losing. The media wrapping their head around the fact that they've lost influence. Listen.
We live in a very fractured media environment where people are choosing where and how they get their information. And unfortunately, it's not always from CNN, although I wish it was.
I personally cannot understand why anyone would vote for him. A lot of it is, I think, he's getting bad information. People are getting bad information from other channels.
Shark Tank investor and chairman of O'Leary Ventures, Kevin O'Leary, is here. Do we have Kevin, or did he just disappear? So, Kevin, you know, you're seeing the betting markets move. You've seen a lot of, I'd call it angst, consternation on the left in the press. Are you seeing what they're seeing?
Yeah, I think what everybody's learning about this election cycle, and it's an important lesson, is there is no one channel that reaches independent voters in 7 states and 43 counties. You got to hit everything. You've got to do social media. You got to go everywhere. You got to do real live interviews, and you have to do a lot of them. And because that's really what it's boiling down to. And I think the strategy of the kumbaya, heavy sugar, no protein, which we saw, I don't know, 8 weeks ago, clearly not working because there's not enough of it. And so, you know, I'm always amazed. I love policy and I love campaigning. But on this campaign, the media is so bifurcated into so many different channels. You got to spend 25 hours a day on every single media, and you got to go live. No editing. Like, what's killing her now are these edits CBS did, and I watched that tonight. That's brutal. What a mistake that was.
So it's like selling a product. You know a couple things about that. You got to just hit everyone, everywhere, wherever you can, and use that moment in each moment to give people the XYZ, how it works, why it works, how much it costs. She just doesn't do that. Why do you think she doesn't do that?
There's 2 types of interviews she's doing. She's doing the sugar interviews with celebrities, you know, that like her. And I get that. But there's no protein on the other side. You got to do sugar and protein. Protein are live interviews with real reporters like you and many others where you sit down. It's not going to be edited. It's going to be live. Not enough protein. Now, I think they might fix that because they know they're not doing it. You got to do sugar and protein.
Sugar and protein, kind of like my dinner. Kevin O'Leary, thank you very much. He's a dietitian and an investor. So there was something fishy about the Kamala 60 Minutes interview, and now it's become a scandal. Right back. Just weeks after CBS moderators muted Vance's mic at the debate, the network was caught airing a deceptively dirty edit of Kamala's interview on 60 Minutes. On Sunday, CBS promoted the interview with a clip of Kamala struggling to lay out her Middle East policy. But when the episode aired on Monday, her answer was completely different.
But it seems that Prime Minister Netanyahu is not listening.
Well, Bill, the work that we have done has resulted in a number of movements in that region by Israel that were very much prompted by or a result of many things, including our advocacy for what needs to happen in the region.
Prime Minister Netanyahu is not listening.
We're not going to stop pursuing what is necessary for the United States to be clear about where we stand on the need for this war to end.
Whoa, what did CBS do here? The first answer they promoted was a mess. The second answer that aired on CBS was better. But what happened between Sunday and Monday? Were they pressured into fixing her answer? Kamala's campaign says no. And how do we really know that's her answer to that specific question? How do we know they didn't just pull that from another part of the conversation? This is an extremely suspicious journalistic maneuver. And if it's true, it is scandalous. We were already suspicious of this interview because of how obvious and frequent the edits are. The Trump campaign is demanding CBS release the full unedited interview. And there's a precedent for that. After all, CBS did that to Trump in 2020, publishing the full transcript of his interview. They did the same thing in 2012 when Mitt Romney said Obama didn't initially call Benghazi an act of terror at an October debate. 60 Minutes waited until the night before the election to release the transcript. And it turns out Obama said it was too early to tell. So what's different this time? CBS has a dark history of election interference. In 2004, they got caught airing forged National Guard documents to hurt W.
Now, news about CBS News and the questions surrounding documents we aired on this broadcast and on the Wednesday edition of 60 Minutes on September 8th. The documents purported to show that George W. Bush received preferential treatment during his years in the Texas Air National Guard. At the time, CBS News and this reporter fully believed the documents were genuine. Tonight, after further investigation, we can no longer vouch for their authenticity.
And CBS also aired a 60 Minutes piece on Benghazi, whose source gave a phony firsthand account of the attack. And to make matters worse, the guy was promoting a book he wrote through a CBS-owned publisher. Then in 2020, Trump was forced to walk out of an interview after Leslie Stahl denied the laptop was real. 2 years later, they corrected the record. Will CBS do the right thing and release the transcript? Journalist and chair of politics, censorship, and free speech at the University of Austin, Michael Schellenberger, joins me now. Mike, you're a highly esteemed journalist. I don't think you'd mind me saying that at all. I've been in this business for a while. You don't do this in print. You don't do this in television. If this is true, how bad is it?
Well, I think it's really bad, Jesse. Thanks for having me. I mean, I think, look, CBS is going to have to release the transcript. They released the transcript from, as you said, from Trump's 2020 appearance, in which Leslie Stahl lied about the Hunter Biden laptop, which is the story that is sort of the magic decoder key to kind of everything around the media and Trump. She said they couldn't verify the laptop. Of course they could verify the laptop. FBI had that laptop since the prior December. I don't see how CBS gets away with not releasing the transcript. I mean, as a journalist, I'm happy to, when you do a full interview, you're happy to release the full transcript. You should be happy to release it. That's a big part of journalistic ethics. So I don't see how CBS is going to get away with it. We said just before coming on the air, a news story is out from New York Post that internally within CBS, there's increasing turmoil, and there's been turmoil around Israel, an unrelated issue recently, but we now see CBS staffers are saying the network needs to do, not just release the transcript, but it needs to do a full investigation, and I think that's right.
They absolutely need to do a full investigation, and you have to be transparent about it. If you're taking an answer from some way other part of the conversation, maybe 2 or 3 questions down, and then you're moving it up to make her look better after you've released maybe perhaps the actual answer in which she didn't look good. I mean, that is so biased, and it is such an extraordinary breach of journalistic ethics that someone has to be fired.
Well, and I think I'm glad you mentioned that part of it. I think there does need to be a full investigation to make sure that there was no communication from the Kamala Harris campaign to CBS complaining about that original awkward edited clip that they had go out, which they then changed and had be a more articulate clip.
Right. You're right, Mike. If they find an email from the Harris campaign, call me urgent about the promo clip, that's your smoking gun.
Right.
They have to
and
go
also,
hunt for that.
it's funny because, the Kamala Harris campaign told Variety also just a few hours ago that they were getting their distance from it. They had nothing to do with it. You kind of wonder why they felt the need to come out and say that. We know that campaigns have a lot of interaction with media. So it would be kind of amazing if there hadn't been that interaction. But I think the genie's out of the bottle. There needs to be an investigation. They need to release the transcript.
Yeah, because if they hide the transcript, that's when you know things are bad. That's when you know they're guilty.
Yeah.